In the future, losses in Buffett's portfolio may continue to grow. He's not a fan of risky investments and always keeps an extra $10 billion under his pillow. But now his business and the Fed's actions have become opponents. Welcome to the Coin Post channel. Over the past 5 days, shares of Berkshire Hathaway, the company of the legendary investor Warren Buffett, have fallen in price by 8%, and since the beginning of 2020 they have fallen by as much as 24%. Besides, a few days ago, Buffett reported a loss of $49 billion to his company. I'm tempted to remember that it was unnecessary to criticize Bitcoin, but the purpose of this video is not malevolence. I just want to discuss Warren Buffett's latest report and talk about whether his era is over and whether the Oracle of Omaha's methods are still relevant. And it's still possible to go through it from an investment of several dozens of dollars to the status of one of the wealthiest people in the world. Because what if we shouldn't have recently recommended these methods of making money during the crisis? By the way, if you missed this video, go and find the link in the description box. Let me remind you that the financial crisis is the best time to take over the world, which we're gonna do. Therefore, join our community by clicking the subscribe button. Let's begin. The loss of $49 billion seems staggering, but for Berkshire Hathaway, this is not the end, but rather an operational issue. Warren Buffett was honest and reported about that, explaining that most of these losses are to do with the stock market crash, as they keep most of their capital in stocks. This is what Buffett's portfolio looked like before the stock market crash. 83% of it are in the top 10 companies, and the rest are, so to speak, small players. But even out of this top 10, only Apple made it through the market fall that started in February, and the rest of Buffett's favorites fell significantly, and this resulted in the current loss of Berkshire Hathaway. In the future, losses in Buffett's portfolio may continue to grow, provided that the stock market goes in search of a new bottom. Nevertheless, the billionaire has not yet expressed his intention to exit the market immediately. And it seems that the point here is not that he's waiting for the recovery of the share's value. After all, in many ways, his actions say quite the opposite. He probably doesn't need these steps and remains true to his strategy. We'll talk about it further. As you well know, Buffett's strategy is to buy a business for the long term, and he is also not gonna give up the shares he got. But if things are not going well, the legendary investor may give up his own principles, and therefore Berkshire Hathaway sold all its airline shares, which put them into nosedive. The official reason for this is that Buffett lost faith in this type of business. To his understanding, civil aviation found itself in a complicated situation in light of the current financial crisis. After we successfully forget about COVID-19, Warren sees no reason for the air travel demand to recover. After all, people are gonna be scared to travel, and many of them simply have no money for it, because now they are left without work and are forced to spend their savings if there are any, or live on credit, which is even worse. In the video that I mentioned at the beginning, we also looked at the situation in the civil aviation sector, and earlier in other videos I said that the airlines were gonna face a severe shakeup, and you could try to make money on it if you buy back their shares at a lower price. After all, there is no alternative to air transport, and it's unlikely that tomorrow scientists will invent a more convenient and faster way to travel between continents. Why did Warren Buffett get so pessimistic about this? As I understand, Buffett's afraid of recurrence of the Berkshire Hathaway situation, because today we know the company as one of the leading holdings. But at the time Warren Buffett started buying its shares, Berkshire Hathaway was engaged in the production of textiles. And Buffett believed that this industry was the future. But when a controlling stake was in his hands, it was clear that Berkshire Hathaway failed as a textile company. And afterward, Buffett began to redesign it for other types of business. That's why when Warren Buffett answers the question about the most unsuccessful purchase, he says it's Berkshire Hathaway. The airline shares were not sold to take some money and somehow compensate for the loss of $49 billion. Buffett's financial situation is alright, and we'll discuss that in the next section. Most likely, he's expecting a wave of bankruptcies in this industry, so he doesn't want to repeat the mistake he made when purchasing Berkshire Hathaway, so that later he would not have to save these companies either. I also don't rule out that after some manage to survive a hard time, demand begins to recover, and Buffett is gonna return to this market, but not earlier. because he's not a fan of risky investments and always keeps an extra $10 billion under his pillow to buy a new profitable business. Unless, of course, the US Federal Reserve intervenes in his plan, which we're gonna talk about later. Warren Buffett is a stickler when it comes to the American dream and supports the US policy in everything, but now his business and the Fed's actions have become opponents. For starters, Buffett has always preferred to have a lot of cash on hand in case of a good time to buy. When the crisis started, Berkshire Hathaway had a stock of more than $130 billion. But due to the active work of the printing press, the depreciation rate of this money has significantly accelerated. Secondly, the Fed's policy of unlimited quantitative easing has led to the fact that there is no reasonable price for buying on the market. Companies that would have filed for bankruptcy at any other time and could have been purchased for a penny now receive state aid without any problems and continue to exist. Thirdly, and the Fed is also indirectly to blame for this, as they fill the markets with liquidity, investors have lost caution and are buying everything up, regardless of the level of risk. Therefore, there are too many companies on the market that have not yet managed to prove their long-term survival, but the value of their shares has soared to the level at which Warren Buffett is not ready to invest. It would seem that the Fed put an end to Warren Buffett's investment strategy. So, is it time for him to give up the status of the best investor in the world? Well, I wouldn't write off the old man, because he didn't go into the technology sector for a long time, and now Apple's shares make 31% of his portfolio. I won't be surprised if, during the current crisis, he takes one more step towards technology and opens up new markets for himself. I wouldn't be optimistic as to expect Buffett to buy Bitcoin or at least a share in the cryptocurrency exchange. But I'm convinced that he has a plan for making money during the crisis and has $130 billion to realize his plan. May I remind you that it's better to conquer the world together. So subscribe to our channel, and that's it for today. Thank you for watching. It's the Coin Post channel. Subscribe and get enlightened.